Despite the challenges of yesterday's class, we are here once again. Can I confirm you can hear me loud and clear? Yes, I need to just confirm that you can hear me loud and very clearly. We need to be so audible. Okay, so for those who don't have sound, please just try to either refresh your browser or I guess that would resolve it. So yesterday was a very interesting session. We had a very interesting time yesterday, and it was a wonderful time. Despite despite the issues we encountered, it was good. Yeah, sure. So this evening we will be looking at someone asked yesterday WBS and planning, but before that we would we will delve into an aspect just to have a recap of yesterday's session. Towards the end, it didn't really end so well, but I want to do justice to that before we move ahead tonight. So it's really going to be very important. Okay, so all right, so let's just get a recap. So what were key takeaways for you yesterday, despite the technical issues we had or we encountered yesterday? What were the things that struck in your memory? What did you learn? And just by way of 1 minute or two, so I can really be confident to know where exactly um, we we were and how it actually was for us. Okay. Okay, Oladayo says, Susie, Oladayo, both talking about the project charter, okay, the benefits of project charter as well. I can remember we said project charter. There's something we said about project charter yesterday. So who can tell me what that is? There's a statement we made yesterday, and we said something about that the project charter really is. Okay. You're all welcome, Clinton. I can see a whole lot. So we have a whole lot to cover tonight. So you're welcome. Thank you, Ellie Super. Says that the project charter is actually a living document. Okay, so Ibitoye says that he learned that before you kickstart a project, do make sure you have what? Oh, the speed of light. It's moved off. Okay, so a whole lot of messages coming in the chat box, so I think I'm missing a few of them. Okay, so I'm happy. I'm glad to know that we learned a whole lot about Project Charter. And tonight, also, we're going to also reinforce that learning. Okay, so now we can clearly beat our chest and say that Project Charter is actually a living document. It authorizes the project, it empowers the project manager to start up the project. So it's very good. It's very important to understand that. And then we looked at some of the benefits. Okay, we looked at the benefits of having that as well. Okay, so very needful. We talked about we saw what a project charter is. We looked at a diagram Okay, and then we saw the benefits of project charter. It saves you time, it helps you clarify your budget, it helps to boost team morale, it gives clear guidelines into what exactly you're doing as the project manager. At the same time, we delved on the second half of the program yesterday. We talked about project participants, we talked about community participants, we talked about the parasitic participants. So I think it's quite clear. Guess there is some saying that no sound. I don't know where that's coming from. Hello, can I confirm? Can you hear me loud and clear? Okay, all right. So good enough. The sound is back. So we also talked about project scope. Okay, there is every need to understand that every project has its boundaries. Okay, so every project has its boundaries, and which must be clearly set up to give the project its the needed, liveliness that it deserves. Okay, so still on yesterday's activities, we drew up a checklist for identifying our stakeholders. We must ensure that they have all been listed, both the primary and the secondary. We must be able to categorize each of these stakeholders that have been identified. We also need to understand that we need to know which of these stakeholders are actually supporters or opponents of your project. And then we also need to group them based on what function they perform in your project. And then finally, we also need to find out, are there any additional stakeholders that are actually coming on board your project? Okay, so these are the key um, things we need to understand. Okay, so we need to understand that very clearly. So until it gets to the point, it becomes needful that every project must be treated with that kind of understanding, that it's not just we're not just here for fun. We must build the project such that it must have the needed success that it deserves. So we also talked about stakeholder analysis matrix. There was a question about that yesterday. The power and the interest. Okay, we are saying that someone even mentioned that she had a parasitic um, stakeholder in one of her projects, and you need to massage their ego, you need to manage them closely, you need to keep especially the main stakeholders, keep them satisfied. And there are those you need to monitor with minimum effort, and there are also those whom you need to keep informed. So still on yesterday, we are just having a recap. Okay, and we're not yet in today's class, but I just wanted to do justice to all we talked about yesterday. And then we went straight up into project scope. Okay, that scope is actually the specific task, activities, and the deliverables which every project goal needs to identify with. So we need to understand that there are key components of the scope of every project. You must be able to list out your SMART objectives. You need to understand that there are tangible outputs, which we call deliverables, and there are also boundaries for each scope. What is in the project, the inclusives and the exclusives. So those things that need to be in the project and out of it. Okay, so it's very important then to have to understand the if there are assumptions or there are factors, constraints that affect or influence the project. And then as well, we have the WBS, which is actually the work breakdown structure. So we need to understand that also very clearly. So at that point, yes. So at that point, we now draw a line, and we ended up what just about when we were to end the class yesterday. We had a network issue, and that we were supposed to talk about how we're talking about defining the project scope, where each stakeholder needs we need to understand the needs of every stakeholder on board the project. We need to define clearly the objectives. We also need to outline the project scope statement, and then gain approvals from the stakeholders, and then finalize the plan to manage whatever change and be able to control them. So outside that, it now leads us to tonight's class. So let's just look at it. How was it? How was it yesterday? And how ready are you tonight? So let's see if you're ready. Let's hit the chat box and see if we are ready to learn tonight. I'm sure it was a good day yesterday, despite the network issues. So we have a whole lot to look at. Okay. Right. Victor says ready, fully ready, and every one of us can collaborate. We can say yes, we're ready to learn. So once again, I say a big welcome. My name is Kingsley Adiole, and with me, my co-facilitator is Nancy Baba Ali. So we are welcome on board tonight. So let's ready and get to roll. The first on our list tonight is work breakdown structure. So work breakdown structure, yeah, tonight we will be talking about work breakdown structure. So why work breakdown structure, and why feasibility studies? Remember, he who fails to plan has already planned to fail. So that's why you need to do what we call proper feasibility studies. Now, let's start up with work breakdown structure. So I'm not going to be doing exactly what we have on the slide. So that's why you need to just pick pick the learning, learn something tonight. I always say in every of our classes, try to pick something new. So there's something new you're going to pick tonight, trust me. Okay, so WBS work big breakdown structure. So just as the name is, it's saying that it is referring to the work that needs to be done. Okay, you break every work accordingly so that you can get the best. Break it down into smaller chunks. You need to divide them, just like what someone said, one of our participants said yesterday, division of labor. So it's very important that division of labor, you need to bring it on board your project. So you have to start from somewhere. Like you're building a house, and that house needs to stand. Now, to build a house, a lot of things need to be considered. Now, you need someone to manage that project. There will be building services, there would be finishing. Okay, so from the word go, budget. So yeah, so you want to build a house. The first you have to consider the cost, not just the cost. You need to draw up a plan. You need who are you going to get on board the team. You need to do some what we call scheduling. You need to fund the project. For the building, you have to start from the floor, then you move up to the walls, then to the lintel level, then you go to roofing. So you have to break every work down. So that process where you are breaking down these tasks step by step gradually is what we call the work breakdown structure. So the deliverable at the end of the day is build a befitting structure. It may be one story, it may be two story, it may just be a bungalow, it may be a terrace, it may be twin duplex, whatever you're going to build. Okay, that's the project. So everything you're going to do starts from somewhere. Don't worry, Indukuba, just get what I'm saying. The structure, the diagram is just to say here that you are building a house. Okay, and to build a house, you can't just bring up the cement immediately and the whole structure in less than 1 hour. You've built a house. No, there must be considerations. There are different things that make up the building of the house itself. So whatever you're going to do that leads to breaking down this task bit by bit is now what we call the work breakdown structure. Just look at the name, work. You break down the work in smaller chunks, structure. Okay, so that is what it is. Okay, all right. So that is where we are. That's what we're saying. Okay, so before you do the, normally you don't go to finishing first. You start from the foundation. Okay, you now move gradually. You start raising the blocks. Okay, and then you come once you're done, you have to do some plastering. Then from you now move into the building, get some level of work done as well, and a whole lot comes in. And when you look at the beauty of the house at the end of the day, you say, yes, I think I'm very happy and pleased with what I'm seeing. So that is exactly what we are talking about tonight. So WBS is not an almighty formula. Okay, it's just a strategy that you must apply. Okay, all right. So step by step, component by component, components leading to subcomponents, subcomponents breaking down into smaller subtasks, and just like that. So that is exactly what it is. Thank you. Stages of work involved in your project. So whatever stage of work you put together to see you through that particular project, you know, helps you. That's what we call the work breakdown structure. So you break it down gradually so that you can track, but you are not breaking it down to micromanage resources. That's one thing I want us to understand. You're not breaking it down so that you will cut cost such that the project will suffer. Okay, you're not breaking it down into smaller chunks so that the adequate mixing or mixture of cement, sand, and stone becomes problematic. Okay, so what we're saying is you just, for every stage of work done to be done, must be clearly broken down such that you can take it bit by bit. So why do we need feasibility in project management? So I guess we understand clearly what a work breakdown structure is. So I just used a building, okay, for that. So sometimes you can even see a public transport company traveling from Abuja to Lagos. So at the point they get to Lokoja, Yes, thank you, Adedipe. You are not breaking down, it's not work breakdown structure to cut down cost. Please understand it, okay? So it is actually you're breaking down the tasks so that you can handle them more effectively and efficiently. Remy is saying or asking, why do you need to break it down? As a human being, you don't rush into everything. Am I correct? So you need to take things gradually, okay? You need to do one after the other. That is the essence of breaking down the work, okay? You don't just do everything at the same time. You don't just pack up the whole project and say we're actually mixing now. We are doing foundation now. As you're doing foundation, you are doing the finishing. You can't be doing the same at those two things at the same time. So it is actually for in fact, I have seen for what they are doing in the group. Okay, so it's really helping. Okay, so tonight I may have to answer lesser questions and it can really help you understand what we are doing in the project. Okay, so I think we are getting somewhere. So something new have been learned. Do not engage in work breakdown structure to cut down costs. Have that at the back of your mind. So let's move forward to feasibility in project management. So why do you think we need proper feasibility studies? So let's go to the chat box. Why do we need feasibility studies in project management? Let me hear from you. Hmm. Ikechukwu Uzabwadike says that even God, the project manager of the universe, had a work breakdown structure. I think that's something very new and good. Yes, I quite agree. I agree with you. Not quite. I agree with you. There is also need to have division of labor. So there's step-by-step processes of doing things. Don't just be a project manager who wants to do everything all at once. Okay? All right. Depending on what the stakeholder is involved in the project. So every team involved in the project need to understand the work breakdown structure. So that's a step-by-step process, different stages, different activities. It's very important. Okay, very important, very key. Okay, so yeah, back to our study. Yes, Rachel says feasibility is to check if the project can take place or if there are limitations. There are more to that. Okay, so it's not just, yeah, I appreciate your feedback. Okay, Rachel, it's very good to understand that whatever before you build or embark on any project, you must first of all do the running arounds, count the cost, find out this project is it really going to survive. Okay, so that process, that method you're applying to look at all the pros and cons, the sides, the merits and demerits. You're trying to look at all aspects of this particular project before you embark on it. You're already doing what we call feasibility. So you want to see how feasible, how viable, how the workability, the success rate, how is it going to look like if we embark on this project? Are we going to be called, is it going to be, are we going to be made of the laughing stock at the end of the day? Things like that. So for proper guidance and understanding the tax, so we need to clearly identify the risks, the mitigation strategies, understanding the constraints, what the budgets are, and a whole lot of that. So when you bring all these things together, what you're doing is you are embarking on feasibility. So that is the idea, where you study the various elements of a particular project to determine if it has the potential for success. That is it. Okay, so at that point where you bring in these various elements to determine if the project has a success potential, okay, what you're doing at that point is the feasibility. Sometimes before a project is approved, you're told to write a feasibility study or a proposal. So and submit to the sponsor to see if they're actually going to sponsor it. So sometimes you have to go through that process. Okay, so before any project begins, an organization, an individual, a company can evaluate the project's feasibility to identify obstacles, bring in strategies on how they can mitigate the effect of these obstacles and how they can actually attract investors. Because whatever project it is, every project aims for what we call profit. So you're not just in embarking on a project, it's not a jamboree, okay? It is actually to understand if that project is actually going to succeed or fail. So we want to see how possible, how achievable it is, how convenient it's going to be, how practical is also going to be. So these are some of the things we look at. And in trying to evaluate your feasibility study, there are different types of subs in it that you need to consider. There are the technical aspects of your feasibility. There are also economic aspects of it. There are also legal aspects. There are operational aspects. There are scheduling aspects of your feasibility. So we need to also understand that as regards technical, this we have to talk about the resources, the technical know-how. Do you have the team that can able to drive this issue? Like where we talk about, for example, the issue of the national grid, for example, of you fix it, for example, okay? In fixing it, you need technical expertise, okay? People who understand what the problem is, who have the technical know-how, who understand that it is not just we're not just coming to fix it, but we need people who understand why the grid is failing at intervals of time. Could it be due to overload? Could it be due to channels? Could it be due to the turbines are not supplying enough electricity power to generate let's say whether it's 11 kVA, 33 kVA. So we need to understand the technicalities. So it's not just for anybody. So the expertise must be there. Okay, so that's technical. You're now focusing on technical resources. Okay, by the name, it means that you're evaluating skills and competences of exactly what needs to be done. Okay, John Collins, you're welcome. Don't worry, pick up from where you are, and I'm sure you're going to also learn a lot. So when we're talking about technical, we have technical aspects which we just talked about. Then we talk about the economic feasibility aspect. So what are the cost benefit analysis? Sometimes you hear cost benefit ratio, okay? Sometimes now economic value is looking at the viability, the costs, the benefits. Remember, for the project champions, they are very interested in the economic feasibility aspect of the project because they are persons who want to they need to bring on board profit. So they care more about profit. So that profit must not be toiled with. Okay. So these are the economic sides of your project. Then we look at the legal. Every project has its legal aspects. So you cannot just wake up in the morning and say you want to sell, you want to go into water factory. Okay. So you must understand that there are regulatory agencies that you must legal aspects. So the legal aspects here include regulatory. Then you talk about the acts. Okay, you can't just it's not just any type of water. Okay, so what type of water are we looking at? that water must be safe for drinking, not just in coloration, okay, but in taste and a whole lot. Okay, so um, for example, an organization wants to construct a new office building in a specific location. A feasibility study might reveal the organization's ideal location isn't actually zoned for that type of business. Very true. Okay, so you want to establish a mining company, for example, inside the where you have a market. Definitely not. It's not going to work. In as much as yes, it is an organization, but not every organization must be situated in just anywhere. Like an abattoir, you just don't situate an abattoir anywhere. Okay, so these are what we're talking about. So the legal aspects, what are the legal requirements? Are they in conflict with the um, the goals of the project? Are they in conflict with the interests of the stakeholders, the main stakeholders? So you need to understand where you need to situate the organization and when and where and how. Okay, so we're talking about rules, laws guiding operationability. So now we also have operational feasibility. Here we are talking about where you have to undertake a study to analyze and determine whether or how well the organization's needs can be met by completing the project. So it also examines how a project plan satisfies the requirements identified in the requirements analysis phase of system development. So for every project, sometimes you hear persons use the word operationability. Okay, now you ask yourself, I'm sure a lot of us have heard that before. Okay, you see it sometimes in a project document, operationability of the project. So it means that whatever the requirements are in that particular project, it must meet it must meet the reasons for which it is to satisfy the the project. Okay, so it's very important that we understand that every project is unique in itself, and in as much as it is unique, we must understand that, yeah, Dedipe, thank you. Operationability. So how do the resources of this project meets the requirements that have been identified for that particular project? Sorry, promise, don't worry. You can always take a look at the project at some at the videos at a later time. Okay, so now we have scheduling feasibility. So this is a very key aspect that determines the success of the project. Okay, so a project will fail if not completed on time. In scheduling feasibility, an organization estimates how much time the project will take to complete. Remember, we said every project has a beginning and must have an end. Please, like I said yesterday, only at 8 p.m. should you talk about attendance. Okay, please. Okay, I think we can get that now. Even if you're just joining us today, let's get it 8 p.m. time for attendance. Okay, all right. Please, let's don't talk about that. Yesterday there were a lot of distractions, and today I think we are doing better. So I must really commend the participants tonight. You're doing very, very good. Okay, so I think we can continue. All right, so every project must be time bound. That's one of the characteristics of every project. It must be time bound. Okay, so every project must work with a time conscious spirit. Okay, so as a project manager, you need to know when a particular project function needs to end. And the next one, are they running concurrently, or is it going to be a linear relationship where the first needs to end for the second to start? Okay. All right. So let's move on. Benefits. Why feasibility studies? It helps us to identify the constraints that we may face in the project. Sometimes it can be internal constraints, maybe lack of technical know-how, lack of adequate budgeting, resources, and could there also be financial constraints? Could it also be logistics? Could it be laws, regulatory agencies? Sometimes it take like forever to get your licenses, and the business, the project has not even started. So it's very key for us to understand that every project, regardless of how unique they are, must be treated with utmost respect. And why I say utmost respect is that you, as a project manager, must first of all count the cost. Cost here doesn't just mean finance. You're counting the cost of whatever you're going to do in that project to guarantee its success. So that is what we're saying. If you, as a project manager, don't have the technical expertise, you need to bring in someone who has the technical expertise to work side by side with you on this particular project to give it the life to ensure that the project becomes very sustainable at the end of the day and successful. That is also the role of the manager. So it's very important to have um, feasibility study. So what are the steps we need to take in feasibility studies? Number one, you need to conduct what we call a preliminary analysis. Preliminary means before the project starts, you should be able to run some analysis about that project. Find out, know more about the project, know more about the environment. It's just like somebody, I said something earlier a while ago that um, yeah, I understand Obaji, but get the little you can. The slides will come very much later. Okay. So tonight we're saying that you need to undergo a preliminary analysis of whatever project you're doing. Has that project been done before? Baseline. Thank you. Baseline, Olushola. I have a lot of facilitators here with me too. So thank you for also adding flesh to what I just said. So if you can understand fundamental, basic, baseline. So these are some words that research about the project you're about to embark on. You just don't come into an environment, you just don't move into you need to understand who are the target, who are this project for. Okay, you need to understand the tangible outputs, the deliverables. Okay, so you need to understand that. You need to outline the scope of the project, conduct a current analysis. Okay, so you need to find out what is the present situation of this particular similar project in this particular environment. Okay, you need to compare your proposal with existing products and services. Maybe for those who are into goods and services, or who are trying to meet a niche, okay, a particular niche in that particular field or aspect. Okay, you need to examine the market conditions. Okay, so sometimes do you wonder why, we have, um, let's take Milo, for example, for those who take Milo. Okay, now we just don't have one 3-in-1. We have different brands having their own 3-in-1 brands. We have Cadbury and a whole lot others having it. So why they study the market conditions, they try to find out. Okay, like biscuits, even biscuits do that a whole lot. Today you see biscuit of 10 naira, 20 naira. You see those of 5 naira. You see those of 500. They don't go below 500. They try to understand the market. There are places you would take a snacks of 500 naira, nobody would buy, simply because the people in the target market in that particular area, they are not concerned with it, because in terms of cost, they are like, you are going to be the one to enjoy that thing yourself. So they have to take off from that area and go somewhere else. So you need to understand that you need to understand every aspect of it. So you need to understand the financial cost, the financial implication of your project. Is it going to be capital intensive? Is it something we can manage? So, and then you need to review and analyze data. Okay, you need to review and analyze data. Okay, so sometimes when you're writing a project rationale or a project background or a background to the project, sometimes statistics are normally included. Do you know why they do include statistics? It gives, that's what we're talking about. You're now trying to bring in this feasibility to for whoever your sponsors or other stakeholders to understand that this particular project has been done before or it has not been done before now, and what exactly so by giving an analysis of the recent statistics or statistics in the last 5 years in that particular project, you're trying to create a reason, a rationale why you think that project will be successful to you as a project manager. So these are some of the things we are really concerned. So in talking about conducting preliminary or baseline analysis, we are, yes, exactly, Stella. So you are conducting preliminary analysis to outline the idea or the action. You also want to understand the market space, the commercial viability of the action. You're also trying to examine the unique characteristics of the idea and try to determine if there are challenges or there are going to be aspects of the project that would be like insurmountable. They're going to be more difficult than others to manage. So that's why you conduct preliminary analysis to understand that. And then when you're trying to outline the scope of the project, you want to define what area of the study that you're embarking on. You're not going to study the different parts. Yes, learner pressures. That's your SWOT analysis. So yes, you are trying to identify the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of this particular project. So that's all we are saying in a nutshell. Okay. All right. So that's part of it. That's what we're just saying, the SWOT analysis. Okay. So when you try to compare your proposal, you're trying to look at what has been done and what exactly is in the system already that you're going into as a project manager. So are the risks higher than what is existing in the market already? Yes, please. You are at liberty to analyze um, all the necessary conditions. Okay. So when you say SWOT analysis, it may just be semantics, but what you are doing is you want to now know the viability of that project. You want to understand whether it's going to be workable, whether it's going to be achievable, whether it's going to be viable, whatever able you want to add to it. This is where it comes in. So because the project sponsor is going to be asking you a whole lot of questions. Why should I put my money? Why should I put resources in this? Because I'm in for this for profit. So it's not a jamboree. So for me to only, I just want you to understand that feasibility. Now bring these two words together. How feasible it is. How successful is this project going to be? So you are going to carry out a study to determine if it is going to be successful or not. So you are going to give me a reason why I have to stake my money, resources, and time into making you the project manager to run this particular project. That is what it is. So whatever English you need to find out, whatsoever comment you need to make, whatsoever data you need to pick, that is where you have to do it. in your feasibility. And there must definitely be competitors. If, for example, you are into soap making, you are into cosmetics, you're into beauty products, you're into bread, you're into water, you're into building houses, whatever you're going to do, just know that there are already people who can even do better or have done better than what you are about to do. So sometimes you may not be the first person. Okay. So that project, you may even complete the project and may not get any other work to do as a project manager ever again because of the way you handle the project. So you must treat it with utmost care and understanding for what it is. Okay. And then you need to understand the financial cost. We've talked about that. So when am I going to receive? When am I going to, how many years will this project provide profit? Sometimes it may not be immediate. It may be after a year or two, like you're opening a confectionery and resources had gone into that particular project and a whole lot of uh, um, funding have gone in, and then you need to recoup, but you may not recoup almost immediately. So you need to also explain to the sponsor that it may take 2-3 years time to break even. So he must understand all this, and the sponsor must also, and other stakeholders must understand the risky market conditions. Okay, so tomorrow I may come back as a manager and say, please, I think we need to add a few more resources, and the sponsor will say, no, the ones I've added, I've not seen any improvement. So sometimes you, the project manager, you need to be so convinced that this project is not going to fail. Okay. And then you need to review and analyze data. Are there any risks you were not aware of before now, previously? Have the market conditions changed from the last time you knew so well about it? Has the competition changed? If the conditions have not changed, what aspects do you need to review? Do you need to go ahead with the decisions that you have taken thus far? So all these things need to come on board. And it is when we understand clearly that these are the aspects that we must first put together during the project initiation and planning phase, then the better project manager we can become. You need to have a backup plan. Yeah, thank you, Abosede. Thank you. You need to set a smart target. So, right from your objectives, you need to set a smart target for yourself. Okay. So, let's take some questions and let's see so far. What have we learned? Have you been able to key takeaways so far as we wind down to the second half of this class? Have you been able to learn something tonight? So let's hear from our participants. How has it been so far for you? Any questions, any comments, and all that. So, project manager, please, from the word go, have a plan B, plan C, if possible, even D or E, because sometimes your plan A doesn't take you all through the project. Okay. Even your plan B may not be the best, it may not just be very good enough. Okay. All right. So, where are we? Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Modu. You need to be sure, Debbie says, that the resources the sponsor invests would yield an encouraging return. A lot of people will say, you get why. Yes, there's always a reason, because if you don't get it right as a project manager, then you're in for trouble. What if you can't meet up on time? About the project, what could be the next resolve? Okay, so there should be change management. That's why you need to monitor and control. That's why we said project management is about life cycles. How can one plan for unforeseen circumstances? It's part of every project, my dear. It's part of every project. You need, just expect there will be unforeseen circumstances. Let me give you an instance. For example, a construction building site, they just did work up until lintel level, okay, and for one reason or the other, they come the following day and discover that one side of the building work that was done just slid in. What are they going to do? You now ask yourself, what exactly happened? Unforeseen circumstances. Sometimes, yes, and other times it can even be as a result of substandard work. So, very important, we need to understand. Okay, very important. Yes, also learn to delegate. At what point do you give up on the project? Edache, you don't give up. Why would you give up? You're the project manager. Why did you embark on the project in the first place? So you may only give up if your expectations, for example, the resources that you need, as at when you need them, all the things you need to put together um, have not been put together. So these are things you need to understand that you don't need to give up. Okay, so you are the one leading. So why would you want to give up? There's really no need for that, except it has gotten to a level where you can no longer manage the project. And that's why it's a little bit more difficult, where another project manager has to step into a project that he or she did not start up. So sometimes we have that difficulty, and we can't handle. Yeah, Precious, thank you. She says she has learned how to use feasibility to minimize overspending. Can inflation affect the schedule? Yes, it can. It can. Inflation can affect resources, okay? Utilization of resources, especially, has to do with cost. Maybe at the time the project started, the exchange rates, for example, those who are purchasing items that have to do with exchange rates, maybe say $1 to 1,300, and for one reason or the other, it's pegged now at 1,500. So you can see there's a variation. So it has to go into the change management. So sometimes you also have to think ahead. It's possible there could be inflation. What if there's inflation? That's why feasibility, you can now see why feasibility study is very important. So sometimes you can have um, a factor where you need to factor in some of these constraints, okay, that come into the creep into the project. So the scope creep doesn't destroy whatever you have done, okay? Abiola Paul, what's POSCORB? I need to understand. Is that an acronym or something? Okay. Musita Dim says, what of emergency and natural disasters? These are factors you cannot control. Okay, but you need to also understand, are there likelihood of disasters? So if there will be artificial disasters in those areas, then you need not even start building or doing any work in that particular place. Okay. Emergencies would definitely happen, but it needs to be minimal, or managed such that it can be controlled effectively. Would it be wise as a project manager to use your personal resources for a project, expecting the payback after the completion of the project under agreement? I would clearly say no. Definitely, I would clearly say no. Okay. I don't advise project managers using their resources to run a project. It's very dicey, it's very risky. Okay. So it's not ethical for you to do that. Okay. Except you are the project sponsor. And even at that, even if you're the project sponsor, it doesn't really need to get to that point. But I see a lot of people doing that, and it's not really ideal. But the outcome has been very disastrous, very, very disastrous. Okay, I have learned a lot, but can you show us a real life document to help us understand? What aspect of real life document are you talking about? And which aspect are you talking about? Are you referring to feasibility studies? Yeah, feasibility studies is everywhere. You can even Google feasibility studies on building a school. You just don't wake up in the morning and say you just want to build a school, that it just came into your head. Yes, after that, you need to think very clearly. Is this something I want to go into? Who do I need to speak to? Where would the school be situated? What is um what is the likely number, the population in that area? Are there more schools already? Will you have a well saturated in that particular area? So, Ruben, you can also, I'm sure, I'm just saying this to you that you may not get everything here in class, but except where it is very expedient, I'm definitely going to bring up things like that in the class for you. But possibly after the class, just go on Google, just type in feasibility, whatever you have in your head. Think of any project, you will definitely see it online. Okay, all right. How do you measure risk? As yeah, that's the second half of the class. Please, you'll get to learn on that. So please stick on and join me in the second half of the class for risk management. Okay. I learned that I should treat projects with utmost care as it determines if I will get more projects. Yes, very important. Whatever you do, do well. Okay. You never can tell who is watching and where. Sometimes where that issue will be discussed. For you to get that project, you may not even be there. So let your work speak for you. Okay. All right. So we would shortly go on a break to end the first half of tonight's class. I'm sure we've learned a lot. So when we return, the second half of this class, we will be taking a look at risk management. So I'm sure you don't want to miss the second half. I remain Kingsley Adiole, and please do well to sign in your attendance and see you on the second half of the class. Bye for now. Welcome back to the second half of this interesting class. We have looked at work breakdown structure, and also we also very interestingly the need for feasibility studies. So right now we would be delving into risk management and how to plan your resources. There are a whole lot of questions I saw on the chat box, and just to clear some of to clear the air, it's very important to understand that in project management, the need for proper feasibility studies is to help you plan accordingly. And your stakeholder analysis, your alumni can just be one out of many stakeholders in the particular project. So it just depends. There's nothing cast in stone. It's just for you to relax and think it through to understand that you need project stakeholders at every phase of the project. Then there was a question about what if there's a slight change towards the end of the project. You have to include it, uh, seek approval, give reasons why is it happening at that time, what would be, how beneficial would it be to the project, so and and things like that. So let's delve straight into risk management, and then at the end we may just entertain some questions. Must really commend our participants during the session. I think it was better, much enjoyable, with less questions being asked and more of this class. Let me see you in the chat box or on the chat box saying, I am ready. And then we roll. Okay. If you're ready, say, I am ready. So who is ready tonight? All right, thank you. Linda says she's ready. Osikweme says that she's ready. Ianu, nothing is going on. Okay. All right. So we're here. All right. So let's go. Let's delve straight into why we are here. Now let's start with resource allocation. Okay. Why do you need to allocate resources? And by the way, what exactly is a resource? A resource is that economic or productive factor required to accomplish an activity or undertake an enterprise and achieve the desired outcome. So when you use man, you use money, you use machines, equipment, you gather resources or information, energy, the time you put into the project, the expertise you bring on board, either technical or otherwise, the budgets, everything. All these are what we call the project resources. Okay, so the project resources. Okay, so that is it. That is it. Resources, you, the team, money, machines, just whatever you call it, they are all resources, project resources. Okay, all right, so that's what it is. Okay, so just understand that. Okay, and then what is resource allocation? Resource allocation is where you assign time, when you assign people, when you assign different tools to various tasks to see that the project works and meet your deadlines. That means you have allocated what? Resources. Okay. So sometimes you hear budget allocation, that budget, XYZ amount was allocated. It means that a particular amount of money was released for a particular project to be done. So whatever resources that you bring on board your project, okay, and you assign them such that they begin to fulfill the purpose for which the project was started to meet the set deadlines, it means you are allocated, or you are allocating resources, or you have allocated resources. So it's very important to give to allocate resources because it improves visibility. It helps you to avoid what we call underutilization or overutilization of resources. So sometimes you see a carpenter, you say you need 50 workbenches for schools or um, student furniture in a particular, let's say in the whole of junior secondary one, and resources that was allocated for that becomes overutilized. We're supposed to spend 1 million naira, and the furniture man or the carpenter budgeted 1.5 million. What happens to the fight? He just wasted 500,000 naira, half a million naira for nothing. And look at the things we bought. They are here. What are we going to use them for? So that exactly is what it is. So that is it. So it's very key, very important to understand that. So that's why we need to allocate resources clearly so that we don't have issues here and there. Okay, so next how do you allocate resources? Like I just said earlier on that a case of a furniture man who comes to a school, budgets 1.5, at the end of the day 500 or half a million naira worth of resources wasted. So you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so what exactly are the resources? Okay, so what exactly are the resources? So you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate? Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resources that you need to allocate. Okay, so you need to identify what exactly are the resour procrastinate. Do what you need to do today. Do what you need to do tomorrow. Then think about the bigger picture. Don't just think about the now. Okay? So it's not about just the now. Okay? No problem. So track time. Be time conscious. Every project is time bound. Okay? Hello? Every project is time bound. Every project is time bound. So the fact that every project is time bound means that you must follow up with time. You need to understand that. Okay. All right. So um, you can't avoid assumptions. Okay. You can assume. What if? Yes, it's not bad to assume. Okay. So assumption here doesn't mean that assumption helps you to think about the bigger picture. Okay. All right. What if the furniture man doesn't turn in today? What happens? Okay. That's an assumption and things like that. So it doesn't, okay. So utilize tools effectively. Okay. Yes, efficiency and effectiveness. Thank you, Stella. You have summarized how to allocate resources. So you should check everything pertaining to these projects for effectiveness and efficiency. Okay, don't over allocate. That's what we're saying. Don't over allocate resources. You want to make, let's say, for those who like swallow, okay, you have three friends that want to eat um, a particular meal, okay, and you should be confident to know exactly what quantity, how many cups should be enough for these three friends. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you now make meal for 6 people or 7 people when actually it's just meant for 3 people, even if they are going to eat an extra. So that's what we're saying. Okay. So what if, yes, gives you room to plan for a plan B, to provide for or give room for plan B. Okay, be realistic. Okay, I mean, when you say be realistic, what we say that sometimes someone who is moving a distance of, that in 10 minutes he would be here. Okay, and the person says, I've left that location. Okay, for example, and you know that at all times, all things being equal, 10 minutes, you call 30 minutes later, it says that it's still on the way, nothing happened. So let's be realistic in our projects. Okay, don't over allocate, don't over assume, if I'm going to use the word. Have a routine, have a plan for yourself. Okay, in the morning when you come in, do you need to brief people what they need to do, who does what? Okay, you just don't wake up and you're driven by the train. Drive the train so that the train takes you to your destination. Know your resources. You are, what's PMS? Where is Blessing getting PMS from? Is that part of this class? I don't think I've mentioned PMS in this class. Okay, so know your resources. Know what exactly your resources are and why you need them. Know them. We need 10 bags of cement, 5 bags of nails, 2 inches wood, and a whole lot like that. You need to know where they are, who keeps them, who is in charge, and things like that. So we need to understand all that. Okay. And then the resource allocation plan. Okay. So sometimes you know which items to fund in the plan, what level of funding you should receive. Yesterday, I did mention that sometimes when you budget, you may be needing 30%, 60% upfront, and then you may be needing 25, 15, or 20, 30, 2020, or the likes. So sometimes it can be that way. And then you can also have a contingency plan which means which is talking about which activity do you have to sacrifice. So sometimes a project may not go exactly as planned. Okay, so there may be need to adjust. Okay, sometimes you budgeted for 20 bags of cement, you just don't get the entire 20 bags. So you say, okay, let's have like supplier, can you supply us like 15 bags, and let's start with it and see if it can take us until the end of the work. And if there's need for more, then we'll definitely call your attention. Oh, it helps to keep bookings easier, to negotiate bookings with other project managers. PM, capital M, capital P, capital M, and a small s. Okay. Project managers. Okay. Please. All right. Thank you. When you wrote it all sentence case, I wondered where maybe it's petroleum motor spirit or something else. Okay. So please, it's important to write clearly so that I can understand. Okay, so there are definitely different factors that affect resource allocation. We have changes in the client needs, the availability of the resources, the dependencies of the project. Sometimes it can be a linear representation where um, task B depends on task A to finish before it starts up. Okay, Ajayi, thank you. So it's don't let the train drive you. Drive the train so that it will take you to your destination. Yeah, I can recall saying that. Yeah. And then project uncertainties can happen at different times. Okay. Unforeseen circumstances can come up. And then your priorities. What are the priorities of the organization or the company or the sponsor behind the running project? There are things that they want to see done. Okay. All right. So we need to see that. Okay. Jennifer says she's ready. All right. So what are some of the techniques you need to apply? Like we said that you need to prioritize your projects. Are there tasks that you need to link together? Okay. Level your resources. When we talk about leveling of resources, it helps you to strike a balance, to know when to use what, how to use it. Not just it's not just let's just consume because the money is there. Okay, let's just spend it. So know what exactly the right use of resources as at when it needs to be used. It needs to be adequate utilization of resources, and then leave room for what we call a breathing space or a breather. Okay, so there should be a breather in between, no matter what. Okay, so sometimes it can be a breather in between avoid putting out fires. Every time you have to do emergency, every time emergency, you need to run emergency. So there's no need for that. Almost every now and then fire brigade, almost every now fire brigade, almost every now fire brigade. It's not really advisable for any project. Okay. Um, so when do you need to level resources? Sometimes you're constrained by time factor. Okay. So why we use resource leveling is so that um, you don't overuse resources, and it also helps you to manage conflicts. Sometimes this is due to overallocation. So sometimes you just have to take a pause. Okay, so it helps you to overlook resource utilize allocation. You don't really care how much you've allocated. Now you're trying to resolve issues that have arisen in that particular project. So you need to resolve the issue almost immediately so that it doesn't yeah, it helps you to eliminate waste. And then you need to prioritize. Sometimes you are constrained. Yeah, that's the word. When you're constrained to put maybe for want of time also and funding, you need to allocate resources such that you will not exceed the limit for which a particular, thank you, Sita, you need managing resources. Okay, thank you. I think that's it. We just need it. Okay, so you need to prioritize and manage your resources effectively. And then why do you need to link tasks? So linking them helps you to you put similar tasks together to see which you can do in record time, which you can. Okay, so sometimes we have tasks that are related to each other. We have tasks that they are duplicated. You need to repeat. Okay, and there are also tasks that are derived from other tasks. So these are some of the linkings that we have when you talk about trying to combine tasks together. So when you're scheduling any project, you need to also give a breather. I think I've said that. Okay, so just try to, sometimes you calm yourself down. Okay, yeah, breathing room just means that you take a little break for yourself. Okay, as you're working, you don't overwork yourself. Okay, so due to Nigerian factor on inflation, before you embark on the project, first you have to count the cost of inflation on your project. Okay, yeah, some tasks are actually interwoven. Yeah, some tasks are interwoven. I don't people, thank you. So sometimes the work in between one another. Okay. All right. So I think Ogene, you understand. Okay, not Ogene that asked that. Ibitoye. I hope you understand breathing room now. Okay. So you take a breather. Okay. So don't just be in a hurry to finish. Sometimes go back. You know, sometimes you see a football coach who say, I want to go up the stands and just watch how my team plays. Okay. So not always I want to be at the sidelines. I want to just go backward, take a lead to one step backward and see how well the tasks go getting on. Okay. So if your team is consistently putting out fires, it makes it easier to focus on the project. When you're always in fire brigade, always emergency. Okay, you don't ever just get to do things as at when it needs to be done. There's always a rush, always a rush. You're piling up a whole lot, a whole lot for the team, and I mean, even yourself, you can sleep well. So that's just it. So before we take our discussion, how do we avoid putting on fires? Putting out fires, not putting on, right? So just try to get things done as at when it needs to be done. That's just the only way. Okay. If there is need for emergency, then it should be minimal. Not every time. You just don't need to be in a hurry every now and then. It does nobody good. It does nobody good. So that's just it. So let's look at risk identification and management. Why do we talk about risk? Every project manager must be a risk taker. That's just the truth. You can't do away with the factor of risk in your team. Yeah, you have to develop your team. You know those you need to work with. So you have to come up with a team. Okay. All right. Yeah, very sure. So now we have defined work breakdown structure, and we would be able to say that very clearly. Very soon we'll talk about network diagram, critical path. I think these are topics that we have well ahead of us, which we will treat in detail very soon. Okay, but I just want us to understand that risk management is one of the most critical success factors in any particular project. So if you are able to manage risks effectively, you can save money for the company. You can also save yourself time. You can finish on time. You can avoid putting out fires almost every now and then. And you're always managing crisis. So it's not too good. Be a crisis manager all the time. I don't think any project manager will want to be called or associated with the name crisis manager. I don't think so. So it helps. It helps. It helps. Now, project management is not risk management. Risk management is actually a sub on its own. You can even, a lot of people study, you can even study risk management as a course, you know, you can study it. Okay. So each time we we talk about managing risk, you must be able to identify the risk. Okay, you must be able to identify the risk, know exactly what impact the risk would have on our project. What exactly would be the effect of the risk on our project? And once we are able to ascertain that, it helps us to know exactly where we are, what we are doing, and why we are doing what exactly is the project. So it's very key, very important to understand that every project, despite that it is unique in itself, we must treat it as it is. So we cannot do away with that factor of identifying risk. So here in our class, we've been able to talk about checklists. Yesterday, we talked about checklists for stakeholders, and today we're talking about checklists for um, risk management. So it's very important. Identify the risk, look at the probability, what exactly is the impact of that particular risk, then be able to document it. Don't just have it in your head and say, oh, no, I think I'll document it later. No, document it if possible. And then for medium and high risk, there should be an action plan with specific dates on how to address them. And then if the risks are quite high, then develop a contingency plan. Okay, so I think that is what that's exactly what we're saying in summary, that we have three categories of risks. Okay, we have low risk, we have medium risk, and we have high risks. So low risk may not really impact the project, though it may give a sign of, yes, I think it has affected the project. But for medium risk and high risk, we should define an action plan and with dates. What is the action plan? Action plan means this is what I'm going to do. This is what I will do next. Now, we have identified it rained yesterday and the rain damaged a section of our work. So, what are you going to do next? How can we address that factor? We cannot stop rain, but in on our sites, okay? But we should be able to watch out when next it rains. Is it still going to affect our project? So these are things we need to do. And then for if it's quite high, then develop a contingency plan. Your plan B, your plan C then comes in. If it happens again and it was affect that project, what do I do as a project manager? Okay, do I need to call the sponsor and say we need to there need to be a change management process or something else? Then you manage the actions and then see if the risk has been handled or managed effectively. That's why we talk about mitigation. And then if they have, then fine, we can then ignore them. If they are not sufficiently mitigated, then very quickly turn to become a problem. All right, so to identify our risk, we can apply several methods. We can consult with experts to get their opinion, expert opinion. We can use flow charts. We can do a what if analysis. Yes, we're talking about earlier. I think Ibitoye said something about that. Yeah, so we're talking about what if this happens? What if this happens? What if it happens? What would we do? Okay, I can remember
I guess the network is pretty not so encouraging tonight, but I think we can still go ahead. So we were talking about the risk management strategies we can apply. Okay, so what it actually does for us is it helps us. So I need to be sure that you can hear me loud and clear. So we've talked about evaluating the results and then try to repeat time and again just to be sure that you've been able to resolve that issue. We talked about SWOT analysis. So there are different methods you can use to analyze risk. And it's very important that we understand it from that perspective. Okay. So, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you can hear me. Don't mind the network, but we would overcome. It's one of those constraints that we are seeing tonight. So it's very important that we understand that for every step going forward, we need to understand that we can apply different methods. Okay, we can use a method of trying to review past projects. We can also interview, have expert opinion. We can analyze the flow charts. Okay, there's no one method you can use. So we can also use a what if analysis. What if this happens? So you all you want to achieve is to be able to identify the risk and mitigate the outcome of the risk. Then there's what we call negative brainstorming. What if this project fails? See the project as something that can fail, and what can likely make the project fail. So that's what we call negative brainstorming. You can also have SWOT analysis, the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis. Then you can use a fishbone or a Shikawa diagram, which identifies the root causes of a particular um, project. Okay, so when we successfully do that, um, the next we need to understand here is be sure that whatever you're using to identify the risk must have either what is the cause. You must know the cause. What is the level of uncertainty? It can happen within this particular time frame, and it may have XYZ effect on the project objective. So if you can have this at the back of your mind, okay, so it would help, okay, to mitigate to a greater extent the effect of the the activity or the risk that is about to happen. It may be a danger waiting to happen. So don't forget negative brainstorming. See the project, if the possibilities of that project failing, not that it's going to fail, but you want to really look at all the sides to it. Okay. Once you have clearly identified the risk, then what you can do next is look at the probability it will occur. Is it low? Is it going to be medium? Is it going to be high? And then what will be the impact? Will it be low, medium, or high? So that's very key. That's very important. So you need to understand that. So once you understand that, it's going to be very key to what is the probability it will happen. That's one. One is low, two is medium, three is high. Okay. So if you have both on the X and Y axis, one, two, three, on probability, impact, one, two, three. So what it means is that if you multiply the impact, maybe has low impact, low probability, then it's one. When you have the impact is medium, two, and is high, the probability is high, then 2 multiplied by 3 would give you 6. Okay. And then number 3 is where you have a high impact, high risk, means 3 multiplied by 3 is 9. But if your impact is high and it has a medium probability, that is 6. But if the impact is medium and the probability is medium, that is 2 multiplied by 2, that is 4. So that helps you to clearly understand what you're doing. So it helps you to place side by side what exactly the impact may be. So depends on the risk. You may have many risks. You can also add something else, maybe if it's going to be critical. So it may not just be medium, it may not be just low, medium, and high. You may also have low, medium, high, then critical. Critical would then be number 4. Okay, so when you add the fourth matrix to make it 4, then it means that once anything goes into critical, you know what it is. So it is only when you have analyzed the risk that you can now decide what to do to avoid them becoming a reality. I don't know, says you can hear me, but I can. Can I confirm that you can hear me? Right. So most definitely, um, we now talk about having a risk register. So you need to have a risk register where you can take, you can document exactly the risks that you have identified. Are they actually, what state are they now? Are they description of their consequences, the probability, the impact, the numbers, how important it is to your project? So you can actually color code them. Maybe you can call it red, you can call it green. So when something is red, that's high alert. So you need to resolve it immediately. When it is medium yellow, I think you can resolve it. So when it is low risk, is green, it means it's still at a very manageable level. But never you ignore any risk, because that risk you call low risk today may later turn out to be a critical risk. Okay, so it's very important to understand that. And then there are those you need to avoid. You need to either eliminate by eliminating the cost. There are those you may need to transfer. Okay, you need to shift the responsibility to a third party. Are there those you need to mitigate the effect or the probability or its impact? That's where you have a mitigation plan and your backup plan. Okay, you can call it your reserve plan. And then accept. Accept means you accept and create a contingency reserve. So that's some of the strategies that we can apply to resolving these issues. So, what are some of the key takeaways tonight? Okay, from risk management, you need to actively manage your risk, which will allow you to proactively manage your project and see problems coming in time to save the project. It is also important to add the action, the due date, and the person responsible for your risk register. So don't just identify a risk, make someone responsible who can handle what to see that the risk is mitigated, even if you are part of the plan. So I think that is all we will be talking about tonight on risk management, and that ends our session tonight. So let's see, how has the class been tonight? Let me hear from you. Because your feedback is really going to be very, very helpful going forward. So, and then, what are your key takeaways tonight? Did you learn something new? Maybe one or two things, and then we draw the class to an end tonight. So, what key takeaways for you? What did you learn? How effective was it for you? So, how effective was tonight's class to you, and what were the key takeaways? Yes, I'm with you tonight. All right, in the chat box, I can see, yeah, do not ignore any risk. Low risk today can be a critical risk tomorrow. That's very good. It's been wonderful. Should learn not to leave any stone unturned. Thank you. Pinky said she learned a lot. Thank you also. I'm grateful. Don't always be a fire brigade, putting out the fires, right? Yeah, very insightful. Though she was distracted, she said she would watch the session tomorrow. Very insightful. Thank you. Very educative. The work breakdown. Um, You must be able to identify risks and know how it can be avoided or mitigated. Okay, Sarah says she learned a whole lot. And then Esther says have a risk register. Every risk should be treated with utmost importance. Yeah. And then, yeah, I learned about negative brainstorming. That's very good. That's very great. That's very great. That's great. That's great. So while you explain the steps to get an feasibility study done, the different points itemized explanation look like it only had to do with if the project had to do with a product. Not really, not really. It doesn't really have to do. You can always scale the steps. So the steps may not be exact for every project. That's why we say it's unique. Okay, that's if we say let's itemize um, for every project, it then means the slides will not be enough. So just pick what you think you can and scale it to your particular project. Okay. So as the need may arise. Okay. So risk would definitely happen. They are bound to occur. Okay. So how we manage them is it's really going to impact on who we are as project managers. So it's very important. Oh, Eforma says, thank you, Prof. Oh, she has elevated me to the position of a professor. Okay, thank you, Eforma. I'm sure that's underway. Okay, so what else? Preparing for risks ahead makes you plan effectively. Work breakdown structure is key for effective workflow. So tonight it's been very, very engaging with everyone in the class. I want to firstly say thank you to Digital Skills Africa for making this program possible. And thank you, participants, for being here tonight. I think about this time yesterday we had a network issues or technical issues at the same time, and now similarly it almost but I think we're able to manage the constraints. That's why it's always good to have a contingency plan. So, on behalf of myself, Kingsley Adule is my name. With me also tonight is Nancy Baba Ali. I'm sure you are going to gear up. You're also going to meet her very, very soon, hopefully in the next class. So she's going to start. Uh, Say hi to every one of us. So she sends her regards. So I say until we meet again next week, Monday, do have a wonderful time ahead. And remember, do not give up. Project management is the key. Have a nice time.